I'm not ashamed to say I've been a fan of the Jeffsy for quite some time. In fact, it won Trail Bike of the Year a couple of years ago, podium last year, and now in 2021 it's done that again. The 150mm trail bike just oozes personality. It's like a Jack Russell of a bike, constantly excited, jumping up and down and wanting you to chase your buddies down the trail. While there are arguably technically better bikes out there, the Jeffsy is the one bike I can guarantee will put a smile on my face at the end of the day. This year, with limited availability across the range, it was the Jeffsy Blaze I was lucky enough to ride. The Blaze was a limited edition bike, which by the time this video goes out will be sold out. However, hold your eye for me, as the Jeffsy Core 3, which isn't a limited edition, is available. It costs the same and simply swaps RockShox suspension for Fox. I'll talk about that later on. As I said, I've always got on well with the 29er Jeffsy. Sizing is good, the frame holds a number of neat features I rather like, I think it looks good, and on the trail, whilst it could be improved in a couple of areas, it's an absolute hoot to ride. Before I continue with the Jeffsy's review, I'll give you a little bit of context on this year's Trail Bike of the Year test though. 8 bikes were in the test this year. You may have noticed some global events have been going on which have impacted on bike availability. It did make it tricky to stick to my £3,500 price limit, which was the intention. However, as time went on, I had to relax this a little bit in order to get all the bikes into the test. Likewise, the impact of Brexit wasn't clear until the new year, which again impacted on the cost of some of the bikes in the test. When this happened, my reviews focused more on the frame rather than the kit, and I've endeavoured to comment on models of the bike which either hit the price point that I couldn't get, or gave other options within the range. It's not an ideal situation, so I am very sorry about that. But neither is a global pandemic, and we're not going to go into the politics of Brexit. I'd also like to give a big thanks to Bike Park Wales. Testing has been tricky this year thanks to travel and group ride restrictions, and so Bike Park Wales' kind offer to let us use their tracks for work purposes whilst they were closed was really appreciated. Needless to say, with no uplifts, I've done a lot of pedalling this year. While YT offer a 160mm version of the Jeffsy with 650B wheels, we've got the 150mm 29er here. The frame is constructed with carbon and, as we appreciated last year, comes with a number of smart touches that should make living with the bike fairly easy here in the UK. Full internal cable routing is guided neatly through the frame, with only one bolted clamp needed to secure it in place. This means less rounded bolts and, in real-world testing, minimal rattling and, to be fair to YT, fairly easy routing too. The bearings get additional sealing around the washers to keep dirt and water out, and should you wish to strip the pivots down, they're all accessible from the non-drive side of the frame to make life easier when it's up on a bike stand, except of course the drive side rear pivot for obvious reasons. The chainstays get both chain slap and chain suck protection, while the down tube has a bolted protector to save its belly from rock strikes. Suspension is doled out by a 4-bar linkage, with the swing links sitting middle way down the heavily kinked seat tube and the shock bolting into its yoke on the down tube. There's still room for a bottle in there, just. It's a small fidlock bottle which twists out and it's nestled neatly below the shock. Those prone to scuffing chainstays with their heels will likely do the same here, as the rear end of the bike is relatively wide. While no bike is going to make negative claims about its suspension kinematic, YT says that the Jeffsy has plenty of pop for boosting off lips, along with plenty of progression at the end of its stroke. The Jeffsy gets one of the stoutest forks around, with RockShox providing their distinctive red lyric up front. Given it's the ultimate level of suspension, it's packed with plenty of slippery travel and enough adjustability to get it feeling just right. While at BikeRadar, we just prefer the latest offerings from Fox, thanks to their updated airspring, the lyric is still one of the best forks on the market for the more aggressive trail rider. At the back, it's matched with a Super Deluxe Ultimate Shock, again providing plenty of adjustability and a great feel. Adjustability is the name of the game with the Jeffsy Blaze too, as while not specifically kit, the frame's able to accept ZS49, ZS56 reach adjust headset, should you wish to alter the front end length of the bike. Continuing the SRAM theme is the drivetrain and brakes. The GX Eagle group set has the big 52.2 sprocket at the back of the cassette, where you get all the adjustments with a G2 RSC brake. A pair of Minion tyres, some of our favourite all-rounders, sit on DT Swiss M1900 wheels, while YT supply their own Postman dropper and Renthal cockpit. Now, as I mentioned, the Core 3 gets a Fox 36 Performance Elite fork and a DPX2 shock. These are pretty much Fox's equivalents of the RockShox units fitted. Okay, you don't get the slippery Kashima coatings of the factory level suspension, but I'm not convinced that makes a massive difference. With the Performance Elite, you still get a ton of adjustments on both units, including both high and low speed compression and rebound on the fork. And as we've found at BikeRadar, the air spring in the 36 is perhaps a touch better than that in the Lyric. As such, with that in mind, I've no qualms recommending the Core 3 as a more available option than the Blaze here. Both the Core 3 and the Blaze do cost exactly the same amount. While the online pricing lists the bikes at £3,599, when you add shipping and taxes, etc., the overall price comes in at just under £4,280. This Brexit bonus, as you might want to call it, should be displayed at the checkout. If you have a little less cash, the Jeffsy Core 2 gets performance level suspension and an NX Eagle drivetrain for around £1,000 left. The YT Jeffsy has been a stalwart of trail bike of the year going back a few years now, and this year's limited edition Jeffsy Blaze fires into third place. The Blaze moniker was added to a number of YT's models, including the Izzo and Capra, and ran in limited numbers earlier in 2021. They came with top spec beefed up RockShox suspension, but used the same frames as the regular bikes. Every time I've ridden the Jeffsy, it's been an absolute hoot. The bike almost defines playful, seeking out every lipped undulation in the trail, waiting for you to lift up and tweak the bar, encouraging you on to square off every corner and manual through whoops. The early part of the suspension is really supple, which makes short work of trail chatter and helps the bike quickly pick up speed on gentle descents without getting rattled. Though it does steal a touch of zip when putting short dabs of effort through the pedals, where the suspension is prone to sucking a little bit of your leg's power up. The Jeffsy is also fairly happily entering into the middle of its travel, managing to ramp up, giving support before it has a chance to feel wallowy and vague. This gives the bike oodles of pop, giving it that insatiable appetite for getting up into the air or accelerating through turns. As you might then imagine, the deeper into the travel you get, the more you have to push the bike. Bang it off a drop with little finesse, and the rear suspension calmly provides you with its 150mm of rear wheel travel. Braking traction is not the best out there, but it's more than capable of bringing you to a halt and keeping you out of trouble when hauling on the anchors over matted routes and through harsh compressions. YT haven't ignored the rest of the frame though. Its geometry isn't so far out that you have to readjust your attitude to bike handling, with a 470mm reach in a size large paired with a 66° head angle, short 435mm stays and a 350mm BB height. This makes it a very natural bike to jump on and ride, and ensures when you do want to tackle tight and twisty tracks, you won't be left behind. From corner to corner, the Jeffsy is more than happy pivoting over from side to side, with the minion shoulder tread pushed into the dirt. YT have provided the frame with a geometry flip chip, should you want the bike to be a touch taller and steeper, though I never did. While the Jeffsy is capable on the steeps, perhaps a slacker head angle would improve things there. At 66°, it's on the tighter end of the scale, and a good couple of degrees steeper than a number of the other bikes in Trail Bike of the Year. A slacker head angle would aid that high-speed stability through calmer steering and a longer wheelbase. It may of course impact on how the bike feels on the trail. Adding capability doesn't always add fun, if you get my drift. However, given the Lyric or 36 plugged in up front, we reckon a slacker head angle would turn the Jeffsy into a real mini enduro bike. Kit-wise, we like what YT have done. The pair of Mini and DHR tyres are mounted onto wide DT Swiss rims, giving them plenty of volume, which in turn translates into plenty of grip to make the most out of the handling. If there's one piece of kit I'd like to see changed, it would be a longer drop dropper, as I reckon on a size large I could get away with more than the 150mm given. Some of my testing for this year's Trail Bike of the Year was done on some fairly steep, loamy tracks. On the faster tracks, having a slacker head angle would actually really have helped to give a little bit more confidence to the bike. It's not bad, it just doesn't quite excel in these fast, steep tracks that some of the other bikes in the test did. Where I did like the Jeffsy though on the steeps was on the slower, more technical tracks. Having a Mini and DHR at the front actually gives loads of braking traction, and the brakes that YT have provided have buckets of power and control, and I really like the feel of the SRAM brakes. Also, the Lyric has plenty of support in its mid-stroke, On the steepest tracks I might add a little bit of low speed compression just to keep it propped up a bit more, and on faster tracks I could wind the low speed off and keep it nice and reactive to faster, higher frequency hits. So it's a kind of mixed bag in its performance. Fast steep stuff it could do with being a little bit longer and slacker. Slow super tech stuff, actually the Jeffsy works really well. Where the Jeffsy works really well is perhaps on ever so slightly mellower terrain. When you're going fast, there's things to pop off, things to hop off. You can't measure fun. But in my world, that's the kind of trail that I find really fun. It's not like terrifying, it's not mega tech, although I do like all of that. But it's just those trails where you just go out and just have a laugh with your mates. And that is the kind of trail where the Jeffsy, in my opinion, works really well. So if this fun aspect was the only thing I had to look at with Trail Bike of the Year, the Jeffsy might have done even slightly better than it did already. The other bikes in the test, which came a little bit higher, so that's the Bird and the Propane, they are still really fun, but they're also perhaps a little bit more capable in a slightly more varied range of trails. And that's why the Jeffsy didn't quite win this year. However, I would really recommend this bike. I absolutely loved riding it. So that's the YT Jeffsy. I reckon one of the most fun bikes around. But how would you measure fun? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you get a notification every time we upload a new video.